Shalom and good day all, this is Tehillim29 back again. This time to cover some manga I have recently read through. And it's finally nice to get up another box of manga that I've read throughout this year. And we are starting off with Finnland Saga. So here I've got Finnland Saga volumes 4 to 11. I am going to have to get a hold of 12. And I must admit, I really did enjoy reading through this series. And it's great, like, watching through Finn's growth, as well as him trying to remember some things that he was learning from his old man Thor's, even though he did pass on really early in the series. Another good thing about finishing this series as well, or what I've finished of these volumes of this series, is that you do get to see a little bit of a flashback, but I also enjoyed how Finn actually got to spend a little bit of time with his family. But before that, you also learn, sorry for the spoilers ahead, is that he ends up deciding to work on a farm as somewhat a bit of a slave or a servant. And of course, with things happening with King Canute, or Prince Canute becoming King Canute, him meeting some new characters along the way, to eventually being asked to fight in a war. And when you do first meet him, after what happened in volume 4, you see him working on a farm and he's just wanting to get away from it all. Things move forward, he ends up meeting someone new, and then eventually he ends up returning home. And I must admit, it's a really good story. It's worth picking up, and it's through Kodansha. So before I move on to the next thing, as you can see here, I decided to read my first Junji Ito, which is called Love Sickness. And I must admit, it was really interesting. I didn't expect I would enjoy it, but sure enough, it did have interest and intrigue throughout the storyline and the story plot. Well, of course, we have Lupin, and of course, a bit of a graphic novel, which is included in this. Lupin the Third. I'm really glad I picked this up through my LCS, as it was really nice to learn about the character of Lupin. And a big thanks to Monkey Punch and also 7 Seas for bringing it out. And last but not least, Heartstopper. So, I think it's time to start to move into the rating of... I think what I might do is I'll rate it by... Well, rate Finnland Saga by... sorry about that, a little bit tongue-tied. I'll rate Finnland Saga 2 volumes at a time. So I'll cover the first 2 volumes, give their rating together as to how it worked with the story, and then the next 2 volumes and how it worked with the story, and continue all the way to volume 11, and then the rating for Love Sickness, Lupin the Third, and Heartstopper will get their own rating. So, starting off with the first 2 volumes, volume 4 and 5. Now, I believe in the anime, it finishes at volume 4, and I've not seen the anime, but after reading through this, I will be watching through the anime, and seeing the end of what happened in volume 4, yeah, things really change a lot for Finn. Because by the time you reach volume 5, some time's gone past, he's somewhat changed. So for Volume 4 and Volume 5, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. Moving into Volume 6 and 7. Now this is where things start to change for Thorfinn. As someone he's put up with, you realise that they have a bit of a love interest or a lover. That eventually things change in that situation and he has to go find her, and he has to try to somewhat persuade Thorfinn to, well, go with him. In this, I give volumes 6 and 7 also an 8 out of 10. By the time the things start to volume 8 and 9, we start to see Thorfinn start to reunite with some of his family members again. And I must admit, it was really nice to see this in the story, as it really worked with his character. But not only do you learn about his character, but you also get to learn about his family that he grew up with, and also how he's still trying to work out what his father was trying to teach him before he left to go to war. So for 8 and 9, an 8.5 out of 10, because you do see sort of like try to meditate a lot on it. By the time we start to reach 10 and 11, well, Thorfinn has been finally called into war, but not only that, he's also got someone watching his back, which, well, wants to kill him because he killed their parents, or was responsible for the death of their parents, but he was given this order by someone else, and in some essence it becomes somewhat a life debt to him. Until you end up seeing the end of what happens in this, and he basically wants to put down the sword and choose peace. Throughout this storyline as well, you do see him actually take up a religious change as well as in some instance sort of like learning about the Bible. And I thought that was really interesting, like him learning some spiritual aspects in regards to life and how he can apply it to his own. So for the last 2 volumes, a 8.5 out of 10, until I can get a hold of volume 12, and then eventually that will show up in a manga I've recently read through list. Moving into Lovesickness. Now, I didn't think I'd enjoy this Lovesickness by Junji Ito. I do actually have another Junji Ito manga, but it's one around a cat, but I'm not too sure when I'll be able to get to reading it. But reading this one, my goodness, yes, it stirs horror in it, like horror into love, but it also, in some essences, explores obsession plus other things, and I found that really interesting. But then you've also got sort of like one of the main characters that you see in the story, and I'm wondering if that main character that we follow in the story is also in other volumes of Junji Ito's work, because I'd actually like to follow more of his character, and also like some of the friends that he's met. Or is it only in this volume that it happens? Because it felt like this was a world that this was the character was returning to. Just how to bring it across. So for this Junji Ito, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. Until I read some more Junji Ito, that could end up going up to an 8.5 later on. We'll see what happens. Moving into Lupin, the third, Greatest Heists. Oh my goodness, this was absolutely fun to read too. I'm giving it a straight 9 out of 10. I loved it from beginning to end. I think you will too. Highly recommend it. Now, last but not least, a bit of a LGBTI story, and I must admit, this is a really interesting story. I'm going to give it a 8 out of 10 because they do the best they can to make it look as organic as possible. Well, until then, let's keep it colourful and have yourself an awesome day.